Illuminatus, here I am. Welcome everybody. This is the Real Zagami Show in a new format for 2026 Illuminati News. It seems like you enjoy a new format, so please support a new format. You can do it through the purchase of my books or by donating. And we want to start by thanking Richard Robinson, Daniel Estes also. I want to thank both of them because these days, guys, it's not easy to become sponsors of a broadcast when we are in the middle of an international crisis and everybody has to watch their pockets. So I understand that. But guys, today we will be discussing a subject which of course will bring us to volume 12, the last installment of my confessions, as well as volume 7, and also volume 4, because the topic of Pachamama has been a topic that I've been discussing for many years. And now finally we have evidence of Pope Leo XIV being involved in a Pachamama ritual back in 1995. This evidence was brought up by our colleagues at Novus Ordo Watch, which we want to thank because they have done an excellent job. Of course, later the whole thing was amplified by the more known live site news, but we wanted to thank first of all the guys at Novus Ordo Watch, which have at times also shared my videos and my articles. So thanks to them, now we have a clear image, I repeat, from 1995 of the present Pope celebrating a Pachamama ritual. For those who don't know what is Pachamama, maybe they should check out my website, because like I said, I've been talking about it for a long time. Aside from the books I mentioned, there is, for example, this article from October 2019, a few months after my arrival here in the United States of America. Vatican working on Amazon right while pressing charges over Pachamama theft. Because at one point, when they started the workings of their Pan-Amazon Synod, the Synod of Bishops for the Pan-Amazon region, they shocked the world by doing a Pachamama ritual in the Vatican gardens. Maybe we should show that also to refresh everybody's mind. But then there was a gentleman who arrived from Austria to Rome. He went there to steal those heretical statuettes of Pachamama that were placed in a church near the Vatican, and he threw them in the river Tiber. This is what happened back then. It was 2019, the fall of 2019.
A man from Austria is now claiming responsibility for taking 5 controversial statues from a church near the Vatican and throwing them into the Tiber River during last month's synod on the Amazon.
My name is Alexander Chugoel, and I am the guy who threw the Pachamama idols into the river Tiber.
The 5-minute video emerged on YouTube this morning. Alexander Chugoil says he has proof he was one of the people involved, including photos and video of his face as he participated. Joining us now via Skype from Vienna, Austria, is Alexander Chugoil. Alexander, thank you so much for joining us. You claim you threw the statues into the river. So why did you do it?
Yes, I did it because when I was at the Synod, as at the beginning of the Synod, I was there to attend a few conferences in Rome, and I was in Santa Maria in Traspontina and talked to a few of those volunteers there. And when I asked them about the statues, they told me that they are statues which represent fertility or Mother Earth. And when I then saw on the same day, it was Friday before the beginning of the Synod, that there were these rituals taking place in the Vatican Gardens, I was just really shocked. And then I thought, oh, well, those statues are clearly something which goes against the first commandment. So I decided 2 weeks later, in a very short moment, to do that. I booked a flight, went to Rome, slept there for a few hours. In the morning, I went to the church when it opened, did it, and flight back to Vienna.
After you threw the statues into the river, Pope Francis asked the people who were offended by your action for forgiveness. What was your reaction to the Pope on his comments?
First, the most important part on his comments for me was that he called the statues Pachamamas. So he kind of confirmed to me that they were what they seemed to be for me. That's the first thing which was important for me. The second thing is, if people are really offended by that, then I think the Holy Father, of course, he can make an excuse to them, because I don't want to offend anyone. It's not my idea to offend the indigenous people. I think those statues do not represent the indigenous people the way I saw them. They are, for example, they are called Pachamamas and are symbols of the Andes, of the mountains there. But the Synod is mostly about the Amazonian guys living in the jungle. So it was many things got confused here. So I think if there are really a few people who are upset because I did it, they most certainly are of the REPAM organization. And if the Pope thinks that they should get an excuse, then he can give them an excuse. I cannot give them an excuse because I think it was right what I did.
I want to clarify something, Alexander. This took place on October 21st, 2 weeks ago. So why did you wait until now to reveal your identity?
Yes, that's an important question. When we did it, we wanted the whole world to look at what we did and not who did it. We wanted the Synod to discuss what we did here. We wanted everyone to ask, who are the Pachamamas? What are they?
So what are the Pachamamas? What is Pachamama? It's very important to understand that the Vatican promoted at the time this idolatrous deity as an Amazonic deity. It's not an Amazonic deity. In reality, it's an Andean deity. There's a little bit of a difference. I'm actually, as some of you may know, my family is from Chile. The Lion family has also been in charge of the Jesuit order in Chile. This member of the Lion family, this relative of mine, has been the mentor of Pope Francis. So I think I know a few things about the Andean traditions. And in fact, I've started to discuss Pachamama in this book, Volume 4, that came out in 2019. I saw this dangerous heresy because that was started to manifest through the Catholic Church. And it's a dangerous heresy, guys, because some of you may say, this is just an innocent, mother goddess figure and so on. No, it's actually, this article from the Latin Times tells you without a shred of doubt that Pachamama can also be involved in human sacrifices. Man buried alive after passing out during ceremony, says this article of the Latin Times. And he was offered as a sacrifice to Mother Earth. Fortunately, he woke up and he managed to escape this human sacrifice. He's a 30-year-old Bolivian man who claims he was offered up as a human sacrifice and buried alive after passing out at a ceremony dedicated to the Toba people of South America. And this ceremony was a Pachamama ceremony. Interestingly enough, in the Latin Times, they didn't want to mention the Pachamama deity that was involved in his sacrifice, while instead, if we go on an Italian newspaper from back then, it says it was Pachamama. This even show he was he survived. It's a miracle that he survived because he was designed as a human sacrifice. And here it says he was an offer to the Pachamama. Now, this week, everybody in the Catholic world is shocked because these old images of the Pope in 1995, Prevost was not yet a Pope, celebrated a Pachamama ritual. And at the end of the ritual, he also celebrated a Mass. So he integrated, this is the future Pope, Prevost, Pope Leo XIV. And these images came out thanks to Novus Ordo Watch and then also LifeSite News. LifeSite News later on will also interview a priest about it. And of course, the whole thing has shocked the Catholic world, who still was thinking about this Pope as a credible figure. I told you from the very first moment he was elected. I went on the Alex Jones show and told you this guy is even worse than Pope Francis.
The condemnation of the cardinals to the allowance of the Pachamama idolatry. Francis gave us the Pachamama scandal, but in 1995, Leo was the Pachamama scandal.
So he was the Pachamama scandal, as our colleague, the colleague from LifeSite News pointed out. And confirming all this, there is a book called Eco Theology. I'm going to show you the cover of the book, but first of all, I'm going to show you the image that appears in which in this book, which says very clearly, Celebración de Rito de la Pachamama. And this guy here is Prevost, future Pope Leo XIV. They are, you see, it says here, the ritual for the Pachamama. This was done in a symposium which involved the Augustinian order. Now, in volume 12 of my Confessions, I told you how the whole eco-Jesuit figure was created after the Second Vatican Council. Also, how liberation theology came out of the Second Vatican Council. This book is very important for that reason. Volume 12 is a book you can read also without reading volume 1, 2, 3, all the others. You can start directly with volume 12, so you can have an idea of the Jesuits who are on top of this pyramid of power together with the Sabbatean Frankists. However, I also discuss the Pachamama in relationship, in relation to the Amazon Synod and also to Pope Francis in volume 7, of course. But the Augustinians, like Prevost, have always worked for the Jesuits. So they did this meeting back in 1995 in São Paulo, Brazil. This was the invitation for the event, the symposium that took place back then in 1995. And then there was a book that was made in which we find the photo which I just showed you, which is translated, it means Eco Theology. Now here it's sold to us like Eco Theology, a perspective from St. Augustine. In reality, this is a Jesuit perspective post-conciliar, post-Vatican II. Eco Theology is a product of Padre Pedro Arupe, the Black Pope. So I've written about it for a long time, and I also publish articles about such blasphemies. For example, I remember when I published this article, which also talked about the fact that just after the Pachamama ritual, Moloch was also brought at the Colosseum. And soon after, we had the start of the pandemic. So we had a lot of human sacrifices with the start of the pandemic. So this article actually is from 2020, but I cite in this article an article from 2019, which is this one. Just let me find it for you. The blasphemies are piling up in Rome. This is the title of this article, which, as you can see, is from December 2019. In this article, I've also talked about the fact that the Pachamama was coinciding with the arrival of the Moloch at the Colosseum. Now, I've showed you the whole thing regarding Pope Leo, because at the moment this is really shocking the Catholic world.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to Faith and Reason. We have a very special episode of Faith and Reason today because Father Murr has chosen to break some very important news. We have a photo of Pope Leo XIV while still a priest in Order of St. Augustine. And he is participating, and you see in the photo, he is with the kneeling participants in a Pachamama ritual. You are definitely going to want to stay tuned to this episode.
So, the incredible thing is that the priest they have guests there at Lifeside News, of course, doesn't want to have problems with the Pope. So he starts the whole thing by stating, "I'm not against this Pope. I'm not against this Pope."
Frank Wright, so good to be with you both.
Hello again.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, they do a prayer, which is okay.
Thank you.
Father, you've got to start us off with a prayer on this one.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Amen.
I just wanted to begin with this before we get into the subject matter. I do not hate the Pope.
Okay, you have the Pope. Oh, you want a biscuit, you want a cake, you want a sweetie.
I think that the Pope is not the Pope. Okay, he's legitimate. He was.
So basically, this guy is a guy who still believes in the popes after the Second Vatican Council. Now, for those who are not Catholics, the Second Vatican Council, like I explain in Volume 12 of my Confessions, is that moment in the Catholic Church in which they came together in the first part of the 60s and they transformed the Catholic Church, destroying any leftovers from Christianity through hundreds of years of Catholicism, which basically destroyed those remnants of Christianity. And that was the last, moment in which we had a little bit of Christianity and Catholicism before the advent then of a transformation that became visible from year zero of Satanism in 1966. Because let's remember one thing, guys. Like I explained in Volume 7, the whole Pachamama thing, which I'm about to show you, the ritual which was conducted at the Vatican Gardens with the late Pope Francis in the fall of 2019, is a product, of course, also of liberation theology, is a product of that pact of the catacombs that took place under Rome, like I explained in Volume 7, and that was the moment of great transformation.
Basically, what I did, Dan, was, and I can tell you, when that thing first happened, I was rocked to the core. I'm going, what in the world is going on here? But when I read Pope Francis's magisterial response, that's when I saw, and hey, that's what the Pope is all about, right? He wrote a document that came out of that synod called Querida Amazonia, and I encourage everyone to read it, especially paragraphs 78 and 79, where he gives the reasons behind what you saw there in the Vatican Garden and later in a side chapel at the Vatican. I think where people are missing the boat here is everyone kind of ran and jumped to conclusions saying he's bringing idols into the church.
Yeah, but that's the truth. This guy is trying to apologize, to justify the unjustifiable. Because, guys, you can't justify this Pachamama monstrosity in the Vatican. And in fact, let's go back to the gentleman who courageously stole those idolatrous statues that were used for such rituals.
It's happening in the church. And if we would have been there with our faces, everyone would have just looked at our faces and asked us, why did those Austrians do it? So they would ask me about my background and everything, which is a completely other question. And as long as the synod was going on, we wanted the faces to be the background and the action to be in the foreground. And now the synod is over. And so 1 week after the end of the synod, we decided to go out and to go public, because we don't want all those very important issues to drop under the table. We want them to be discussed by everyone. Every Catholic has to know what is going on in the Catholic Church, so that our Holy Father has the possibility to really see and to really understand what the faithful layman think.
The timing here is still interesting to me, Alexander, because you're also asking for donations to something called the Boniface Institute. What will these donations fund, and what would you say to Catholics who call this basically a publicity stunt to get money?
Yes, as when we did it, there was neither and St. Boniface Institute, as there was nothing. I really did it because I'm a faithful Catholic, and I think it is right what I did. But afterwards, we saw that all the people want to support us, and we said, okay, if there would really be something, for example, they sue me or something, I don't want those people to give me money. It's not about me. I want to do it as a private person. But if the people want to support actions like these, we want to connect all the Europeans who are interested in doing things, in really speaking about their faith, in really going against all the crimes happening in the church publicly. And the St. Boniface Institute is there to connect all these people. So it's actually not about that case alone. Of course, we found it now because we founded it out of millions of people giving us their support. And we thought, we then collect the email addresses.
So there is a lot of support at the time. There was a lot of support for this gentleman going into the heart of the heresy while it was taking place. It was a moment, I guess, of great awakening for a lot of Catholics.
Blasphemy, he's an idolater.
Yes, that is the truth. It's a blasphemy. It's a complete blasphemy. I mean, you can't regard this as Christianity. This has nothing to do with Christianity. It has to do with paganism, and with a form of paganism that we could clearly state is satanic. When you demand a human sacrifice to place under a building, if you believe in Pachamama, when you require an animal sacrifice for a smaller home, or you actually participate to the whole thing, just thinking that in some way connects to the Holy Mary, because there is this attempt, there has always been this attempt in the Andes to connect the Holy Mary with the Pachamama. This has been in my family for over 200 years. Like some of you may know, the Lion family has been present in Chile for a long time. And in fact, if you check out this beautiful artwork made of silver, the face of the Holy Mary is actually Indios, is actually an Indios woman, it actually resembles the Pachamama. Now, what happened in 2019 with Pope Francis? We thought there was just a Jesuit heresy of sorts. But when you go and check out now the images that came out of Pope Leo, you know that the whole of the Catholic Church in South and Central America has been compromised. We know that. this is really so distant from Christianity. There is no way of justifying this kind of thing. But of course, LifeSite News, they have to have a more moderate approach.
That's all there is to it. Would he have been my candidate? Not necessarily.
So basically, LifeSite News, being still people who believe in the Pope, they're not sedevacantists, they're not Lefebvrians, they are not critical of Vatican II, so they say simply, oh, we will have probably chose somebody else. No, every single Pope that came during and after the Second Vatican Council, and that includes Papa Roncalli, Papa Montini, which was Paul VI, and then all the other popes, John Paul II, Ratzinger, Benedict XVI, and then, of course, Pope Francis, up until the present Pope Leo, are all the product of this Masonic Jesuit takeover of the Church, which wants to normalize things like this, worshipping the earth, the mother goddess, and all this nonsense.
He did. At best, you could say this is imprudent application of the communion of saints, because we're
No, this is not an imprudent application of the communion of saints, my friend. This is heresy of the worst kind, and it's not justifiable in any way, shape, or form. I mean, think about the fact that during his pontificate, Pope Francis and then his successor have been doing everything possible and imaginable to fight the traditional Latin Mass. During Biden administration, which was a Jesuit administration, they even used the FBI to investigate those priests and those churches which were practicing the traditional Latin Mass. So imagine that. But they don't investigate instead this heresy. So let's go back to LifeSite News.
However, I am not a sedevacantist, and I'm not bashing the Pope for the joy of bashing the Pope. I do this not because I want to cause more confusion, but because I want to clarify some things and shed some light, if possible, perhaps some light, on why the Holy Father is naming the bishops he's naming the cardinals he's naming. And
well, dear friend, just purchase this book, volume 12. Even Carlo Mania Vigano has been given a copy of this book, because this book, it's really exposing the whole post-conciliatory church of the Jesuits. The Jesuits who, of course, have a long history of almost 500 years with the Catholic Church. The Jesuits who have been behind every single secret society or society with secrets, if we intend the Freemasons, in the last few hundred years. They have been behind every form of Illuminati, and they have made, of course, this Luciferian court in charge of this new world order / disorder. At this point, there is a video I want to show you, a video which I found on the internet from a few years ago, made by the Augustinian order, which includes a lot of the photos of the Pachamama ritual and that symposium which saw the participation of the future Pope. I think it's probably the right time to show this video. Liberation theology. What is liberation theology? Liberation theology is basically mixing Marxism and Catholicism together. Like I explained, volume 12, the Jesuits also experimented communism with the Guarani Indians from a very early stage of their takeover of Latin America. Latin America has always been a demonic Jesuit product. And we have to admit, the Catholic Church never really wanted to eradicate these pagan deities. They simply want to integrate them. They have always done that. They did it with Isis, they did it with Mitra, they did it with many other deities. And here we have, of course, the Augustinians, who are controlled behind the scenes by the Jesuits, with the future Pope celebrating a Pachamama ritual and then a Mass. The attitude of the Latin American church after the arrival of liberation theology. Liberation theology was devised within the last stages of the Second Vatican Council. So it's very important to understand that. But let's go back to the LifeSite News take on it.
And all of the people around him, why they are a certain way. We'll just leave it at that. Or certain ways, if you will, all right? But it is not because I hate the Pope. I really refuse to wear that title at all.
We get it. You're scared. You don't want to be sacked. You don't want to lose your job. But please be honest about it. This Pope is a heresy in itself. He's a representative of God on earth. No, he's a representative of Satan on earth. But you don't have the courage to say it because, of course, you are a Catholic priest. So you are there, attempting to justify the unjustifiable. It's sad, no?
I do not hate the Pope. I pray for him daily.
Okay, we get it. You don't hate the Pope. You pray for him daily. It doesn't change the fact that the church has been taken over after the Second Vatican Councils by Freemasons and Jesuits.
In every Mass and in Lauds and in Vespers. That's just not true to think that way. And I just wanted to clear that up to begin with.
What we had was a very explosive revelation. This is the photo. This is a photo, as you can see clearly, of a people kneeling in a circle with one of the presider, whoever that is, in some kind of traditional Amazonian type of shirt, and he's leading some kind of ritual. At the bottom, it explains very clearly that it is a Pachamama ritual. It's Spanish, but I'll translate it for you. It says the celebration of the rite of Pachamama, which is an agricultural rite offered by the cultures of the South Andean region in Peru and Bolivia. And so that's what that says. And there you can see clearly behind that little table, circled there in red, is the figure of Robert Prevost. Now, Father, you say you have 3 different Augustinians who have vouched that is indeed the image of Robert Prevost. Is that not true?
That is absolutely true. And also, before we presented this on the air, we wanted to be super sure, not just sure, super sure, that this was verified, that it was documented. And we finally, through a little help from friends, got into a library and found everything just as it was described. But so the documentation is without flaw. This is real. This is not conjured up, and it's not Photoshop or anything like that. What I wanted to show here is, you know that I'm kind of a fanatic on the Eucharist. I love the Eucharist, and I try as hard as I can, as often as I can, to defend our Lord really, truly present in the Eucharist. It irritates me to no end that communion in the hand is being the norm all over the world today, because it was born out of disobedience. It also irritates me very much that certain bishops, especially in the West, but in the United States and in Canada particularly, are almost fanatically upset that people are kneeling for the reception of Holy Communion. My point is that we kneel out of adoration for the Blessed Sacrament. And I also go one step further. I believe that there is a strong movement. It has been present for...
Yeah, but this is... Guys, we want to know why the future Pope is being caught kneeling down to a pagan divinity. And you are not telling us that. You are just navigating the whole thing about the Eucharist that is now, given a certain way and received in another. Who cares? Let's stay on topic, please. No, that's like, this is like the Jesuit way of bringing us this information, because it's not any longer a correct way of bringing us information. I repeat, on Pachamama. Pachamama is, of course, a mother goddess figure of sorts of the Andes. It became an important topic back in 2019. It was then discussed for a few years because of what happened. I think that this testimony that I'm about to share with you, this testimony of what happened by the guy who actually stole the statuettes, it's introduced in Italian, but we can maybe just go through this introduction and then go directly into the part which is discussed in English. Listen to what he says, this gentleman of great courage who managed to steal the idolatrous statuettes and throw them in the Tiber.
Hello, my name is Alexander Chugoel, and I am the guy who threw the Pachamama idols into the river Tiber. Why did I do that? Yeah, you have to know, I followed very closely what was happening in Rome surrounding the Amazon Synod. And I had the idea in my mind that I should get more information in Rome itself. So I traveled to Rome at the beginning of the Synod to attend a few conferences which were held to get closer information on all the different issues of the Amazon Synod. Around those conferences, I visited the church Santa Maria in Traspontina, which is right between Castel San Angelo and the Basilica of St. Peter. In this church, there were two side chapels prepared for visitors of the Amazon Synod. So there were volunteers standing around, and within the chapels you saw different symbols of the Amazonian culture in the Amazonian area. And with this, and a few of those symbols were statues of so-called Pachamamas. The volunteers there explained us that these are signs of fertility and of Mother Earth and of integral ecology and everything. And when we talked a little bit longer with them, they even explained us that the Synod is not about something religious, it's more about politics. And I had lots of questions to them. I even talked to them about if the people in the Amazon get baptized from the missionaries, and they told me no, they normally not, because that's not part of their culture and so on. So I was very upset. I went inside the church another time with a friend who is able to speak Portuguese to get even more information. And after all the visits and everything I heard, for me it was totally clear, this is against the first commandment. It is something wrong. It is a fertility goddess, Mother Earth. And the first commandment, I am the Lord your God. You shall not have other gods beside me. You shall not bow down to any graven image. And then I saw the video of them bowing down to this particularly graven image in the Vatican Gardens. I traveled back to Austria and really tried to think over and over and over, is this good? Is this good? And then I came to the conclusion, together with friends of mine, we should do that. We should go to Rome. We should get the statues out of the church. They do not belong in a Catholic church. They should be outside of the church. So we traveled there in the early morning, 2 weeks ago now. We stood up and went to the church, Santa Maria in Traspontina. We heard it opens at 6:30 a.m., but apparently it was not opened. So we walked around a little bit, prayed a rosary as we sat down on the bench next to the church, prayed a rosary. And when the last Hail Mary was spoken, the church doors were opened. So we just went inside. I looked at both of the chapels to see where the Pachamamas are now standing, then went inside of the chapels and tried to get as many pagan things out of it as possible. So I was able to grab 5 Pachamama statues. Then we went outside of the church, went to the Castel San Angelo, and next to the Castel San Angelo there's a bridge, the so-called Angels Bridge, and from the Angels Bridge we threw them one by one into the River Tiber. It was a great success. We didn't really understood it in this second, but an hour later, and 2 hours later, and 3 hours later, we really understood that this had a great impact on the Catholic world and on the Synod. Because now everybody was seeing what happens in the Synod. They now try to inform themselves, what are these Pachamamas? What is it directly? What do they stand for? And they also, that's not Catholic. So we got tons of support and fantastic people prayed for us. I think millions of rosaries by now, and I'm so glad and I'm so happy that this happened, because without praying for each other nothing works. And so we decided we don't want to hide. I want to go out to public and tell them, because I don't want them to think it was a coward action. We didn't go out earlier because we wanted the action itself being the main point at the discussion. So we wanted the people to talk about what happened and not who did it. But now, 2 weeks later, 1 week after the end of the Amazon Synod, we are ready. We want to face them. We want to show them there are some laymen. We stand up and we don't longer accept things like that happening in the Catholic Church. We were from Austria, from Vienna, and are now currently back in Vienna, in our wonderful city, and ready for more action and for more work on it. So just subscribe to this channel on YouTube, and then you will get another video within the next few hours or days, where we will explain a little bit more about our thoughts we had about on the Synod. Till then, Godspeed, God bless you all, and thank you for all your support.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexander, for what you did with great courage back then. It's a pleasure to be able to share your courage with my audience. Now, guys, the Pachamama thing I described very much in detail in Volume 4, explaining, how this deity is used for animal sacrifices, but even human sacrifices. Yet, the Pope, the present Pope, has been now exposed for having himself participated to a Pachamama ritual. And of course, this is a documented participation. God knows how many times this Pope has actually participated in secret to this kind of rituals. We have a bunch of apologists, a bunch of people who are trying to defend him. First of all, they try to say this was an AI-generated image. Then when they couldn't defend him anymore with the AI-generated image, they said, oh, he's just doing a missionary work. He's doing missionary work. So he has to be even among the people who are doing such rituals. No, this was an event, a symposium, which was then used also for a Pachamama ritual before he actually celebrated the Mass. And they all bowed down to this idolatry. And then, of course, at the end of the event, they even made a photo all together. Watch them, nuns, priests, all happy of having participated to an heretical event dedicated to eco-theology. Now, that is also interesting, because if you remember last year, I showed you that in Castel Gandolfo, Pope Leo did the first echo mass. And I have an article here. I also wrote, of course, about it, but I wrote about it in an upcoming book, but I can't tell you the subject. Anyway, Pope Leo XIV celebrated the first climate change mass in Castel Gandolfo, and is also the place where the Satanists regularly celebrated their black masses nearby. So if you want to check out this article, Pope Leo is the fruit of heresy, of a dangerous heresy. So there is no need of defending. Defending what?
About 45 years to move away from the idea, from the notion, from the reality, from the truth of Jesus Christ truly present in the Holy Eucharist.
Okay, but why do you have to discuss the Holy Eucharist? Go back to the point. We want to discuss the heresy of Pope Leo.
And toward a more Protestant, liberal idea of a symbol, that the Eucharist is a symbol of Christ. It is not, it is a symbol of Christ, there's no question. It is a sign of Christ, yes, there's no question. But it also happens to be Christ.
Okay, what has this to do with the Pachamama satanic ritual of Pope Leo? You see, the guy is deflecting, is simply not addressing this whole thing. It's embarrassing. LifeSite News brings out something which I can clearly deem embarrassing.
And this is what's most important. We are trying to get away from that whole idea. I just wanted people to see what many of our priests.
Somebody said the local Satanist looks like thin metalheads. No, local Satanists, if you go and study the actual article, have been celebrating rituals there from a very, very long time. Rituals near Castel Gandolfo predate even Christianity. Of course, once Christianity arrives, those rituals, which might be dedicated to Saturn or some other gods, then become satanic. The fact they want to be close to the summer residence, Castel Gandolfo is the summer residence. But the interesting thing is that just the same day as this Mass, we had also the Pope receiving for the first time in Castel Gandolfo Volodymyr Zelensky. The Mass was called Missa pro custodia creationis, Mass for the care of creation. And this Mass is only the beginning of a greater heresy which is unfolding. Like I stated over and over again, the Catholic Church is no longer what it used to be. So I repeat, these slippery snakes that talk at LifeSite News should not be so slippery, should be coherent with the fact that LifeSite News in the past has done also some great work. Now, it seems they have been forced into the mainstream.
And even future popes kneel down to adore while prohibiting the reception of Holy Communion.
Yeah, but we don't care. You have to talk about the topic. Let's go forward. I mean, this guy just...
It's not theology. This is all poppycock.
Okay.
It's nonsense. But I'll tell you what, if they knew theology and then studied theology of liberation...
Okay. Finally, he has talked about the theology of liberation, which has been, of course, a very important subject, which I've discussed in volume 12, which I've discussed also in the past, including volume 7, where I talk about the Pact of the Catacombs, which was sealed. It was secretly conducted under Rome in the catacombs by a group of South American bishops that later on will manifest what is now called the theology of liberation or liberation theology.
Theology of liberation and theology of ecology and theology of
theology of liberation, theology of ecology, like I explained in volume 12, are products of Padre Pedro Rupe. They are products of the Jesuits. But Lifeside News can't say that. No, they can't mention the Jesuits. That would be revealing too much.
this and of that. It's not theology. This is all poppycock. It's nonsense. But
yes, so why don't you tell us who produced this nonsense? That's the thing, you know. There's always a missing element. Oh well.
I'll tell you what, if they knew theology and then studied theology of liberation, they would find it laughable. But the point is now they're not even learning theology. These are Augustinians who really have no clue of St. Augustine.
Okay, so he is basically saying the Augustinians, which I've showed you also in that video symposium, which also includes the images of Pope Leo, the future Pope Leo, when he was just simply a member of the clergy doing his thing in South America. But if you do your thing, even on behalf of the Augustinians, you are still controlled by the Jesuits if you are in Central or South America, because it's their territory.
Dominicans who really don't know St. Thomas Aquinas.
Well, we have Dominicans that don't know St. Thomas Aquinas because the Jesuits have made sure that the Dominicans today are not what they used to be, that's for sure. There is a few Dominicans still left who might know their thing. I talked about it at the end of volume 12 of my Confessions. However, it's very interesting what has happened here with these photos coming out and revealing to us finally that this Pope has always been the product of heresy from the very beginning. I mean, look at him there in front of the Pachamama during the ritual. That is Robert Prevost. That is the future Leo XIV. That is a Pope in front of somebody who is, of course, a shaman, who is invoking Pachamama. He's not invoking the Holy Mary. He's not invoking it's not somebody who is praying to Jesus or to God. And I want to tell you something. We have made a show about the Chabad Lubavitch movement. And in my brief experience with people from the Chabad Lubavitch movement, they have exactly the same attitude of the Jesuits. I can guarantee you that. There was this gentleman who was offering me money, even, for, in his words, editing my books. I said, no way, I edit my own books. I don't want them to have any other person than me and my wife on them, because these books are really the product of my life, and I want them to be current with my work. But the other thing is that same gentleman was doing a shamanic South American ritual at the death of his wife, aside from the ceremony conducted with the rabbi in the Chabad Lubavitch synagogue. This is the syncretism of religions that is so fashionable today in this manifesting one world religion.
Incredible. And this is what's coming in as a substitute. And I just want people to be aware that if this is what is done privately, and mass with holding hands and singing Kumbaya, this is the psychology of these people who are now in power. That's my point. Do I hate the Pope? Absolutely not. Do I detest the office and say that it's vacant? No, I do not. Absolutely not.
Sorry, so you are basically stating that the present Pope is doing Kumbaya rituals, but you are absolutely not condemning him? I mean, what's wrong with these people? Can't they just be a little bit more coherent? If you don't agree with your Pope, you should no longer respect the office of the Pope, which has been taken over by Satanists since the Second Vatican Council. Freemasons, Satanists, and Jesuits, which are all, of course, Satanists.
I just want people to wake up. It is time for people to wake up.
Very good. Father, let's show...
Okay, wake up, but you still respect the office of the Pope. I don't respect the present Pope. I don't respect any longer the office of the Pope taken over by Jesuit globalists, Pachamama lovers, and Satanists. Because, like I explained in Volume 12, there were Jesuits who were also Freemasons, who were Pachamama lovers, who were the product of this Vatican II. And in this book, I make the names. I expose them for what they are. And that's what these people should do instead of slippery people.
This is the book that it comes from. It is about a symposium that was held in 1995. This book is published in 1996, and it contains...
Somebody said that the church has been satanic since their inception. Well, I mean, that's, of course, a point of view. In that case, you will have to view the Council of Nicaea and acceptance from the Roman Empire of this new religion as itself a strategy that then was also manipulating a religion and integrating others. And I can say that in reality, real Christianity has always been mixed with the pagan cults from the old empire. I explain it even in Volume 12. I mean, Isis becomes the Black Mary. You have, of course, Mithras. The place where Saint Peter is buried, the place where we find the Vatican, was a Mithraic temple. The place where Pope Francis is now buried outside of the Vatican was itself a place for the worship of the mother goddess, of the Pachamama of the Romans, so to say. So definitely there has been always a lot of compromise. But at this point, we can clearly see the compromise and go on worshiping God rather than Pachamama, because opening up to these heresies is making things even worse.
Contains this photo that we showed you already. See the red circle? Here's the photo from inside the book that Father was talking about, that mass. Well, after the Pachamama ritual was done, they actually had a mass on that self-same table. And here you can see the photo of the future Pope Leo holding hands.
Yeah, so I mean, a Pope that celebrates mass after a Pachamama ritual is the Pope that you still accept as your, supreme pontiff? Come on, man. How? I mean, these people are not coherent. LifeSite News is not coherent, let me tell you. I mean, at least Church Militant was coherent during his period. It ended up with the guy in charge involved in a scandal. But, I mean, during their years of work, Church Militant seemed to be a little bit more coherent. However, this is really the end of Pope Leo for those who really can see the evil of the Pachamama idolatry.
In the air with all the other participants around that little table, which was then used for the mass. So it is a very strange thing. We want to show you that in addition to the 3 Augustinians that have confirmed that it is in fact Leo, there is a Augustinian magazine called OALA from around the same period, in fact, from the year before. And here is an image of the same man, obviously, you can see. And if you look right above, you can see he's named Roberto Prevost. So we have this now confirmed both by Father's witnesses, the Augustinians who knew him to be who he was, but also in photographic evidence. And if you look even at other photos that we're showing you now of Leo during those years as a young priest, you'll see that they match up very well. Here's a photo of all the participants at the conference, and you can see right there is Leo as well. The evidence is clear. We have Pope Leo participating in a Pachamama ritual, photographed among the kneeling participants in a Pachamama ritual.
The same people who are telling you that it's prohibited to kneel to receive the Eucharist kneel for paganism.
Yeah, and so why do you accept them? Why doesn't the church at this point, the real church, break up from the false church of Pope Leo? Because the interesting thing is that even after all the heresy promoted in the last few years by Pope Leo, Pope Francis and then Pope Leo, it seems like there is no schisms. In the past, we had Lefebvre, for example, Monsignor Lefebvre. We had also, I mean, if we go back to another important Augustinian figure like Martin Luther, there was a complete breakup with the Roman Catholic Church, the beginning of the Reformation. Then the Jesuits arrived with the Counter-Reformation. I don't understand why these people are critical of a pope, but they still worship that same pope.
What's paganism? Paganism, paganos, the beliefs of agrarian peasants. This is a nature god, an agricultural image. It is literally a pagan idol. As for what Father says about Marxism, we'll all remember fondly that Karl Marx was, of course, a Catholic. Lol. If you want to know when this began, there's this book again, which is the version of Pascendi. Pascendi Dominici Egregius was written nearly 120 years ago. And furthermore, so are the Catholic social teachings, even older, of Leo XIII, which warn you about the threat to the church from within it, from Marxists, nihilists, and people who can be accurately described as pagans.
So, I mean, you have a pagan now. It's demonstrated. The guy is worshipping, I mean, the Pachamama. Watch, the Pope. Leo XIV in front of the Pachamama worship. Still, these people want to be in communion with the Church of Rome. I sincerely don't understand this.
To promote a religion of integral humanism, which is precisely what Pope Leo said he was promoting in an apostolic letter about 6 weeks ago. This is a deeply disturbing reality, but it is reality. People will probably hand wave it away and say, oh, well, it was a long time ago and he's not really this and he's not really that. Look at the fact he's wearing red shoes, etc. This is also because, well, look, for the last 100 years, the political technique by which we've been ruled in the West has basically made a virtue of you denying obvious reality. Now, there's another reason why people will deny this obvious reality, because if you accept it, you have to do something about it. And if you don't accept it, you don't. Basically, telling the truth and accepting it, facing the facts, takes courage. And it necessitates that you do something about it. Well, by the way, right, about Father Meur's claim about 100 million dead, the Marxist historian Eric Hobsbawm, who's dead now, has written extensively on that. And it is to be remembered that he was a Jewish Marxist himself. And it is he who said that the minimum would be 100 million souls who've been the victims of communism throughout what he called the short 20th century. So that's not a spurious claim, and it comes from the other side too.
So Sabbatean Frankists and the Jesuits created and promoted communism. The Jesuits even experimented, as I explained in Volume 12, with the Guarani Indians in South America. They experimented this monstrous ideology. Later on, the Sabbatean Frankists, who, by the way, were involved in the creation of various secret societies and also were connected with the League of the Just, just another product of the Illuminati, who at that point, also with the Asiatic brethren, with people like Moses Dobrusco, was the son of the cousin of Jacob. I mean, all this produced communism, and communism is an evil ideology, is a very evil ideology. And so why should we accept in any way liberation theology, which is mixing Christianity and communism together? It's something that we should consider heretic, just like we should consider heretic a pope who has been involved with liberation theology, has been involved with the Pachamama worship, has been involved with eco-theology. Now, this week we had Peter Thiel in Rome. We talked about it last week. Peter Thiel discussing the Antichrist. Peter Thiel discussing the Antichrist and talking about Greta Thunberg, where that comes out directly out of Volume 4, which was published in 2019. You don't need to go to an expensive conference of Peter Thiel to know that. But Peter Thiel was then criticized this week, justly criticized by certain Catholic publications. Why? Because he's saying that the AI and robotics will defend us from the Antichrist. I mean, that's insane. That's completely insane. I want you guys to continue to support this show. We would like to do more shows, but we need sponsors. People tell me, but you do a lot of shows in Italian. Yes, because I have a lot of sponsors for the Italian shows. I don't have such sponsors for the English-speaking shows. Today, we want to thank Richard Robinson. We want to thank Daniel Estes. But if you want to support us, please do it through the purchase of my books, including Volume 6.66, The Age of Cyber Satan, Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, which is these days really relevant, like Volume 7 and Volume 9, which is the trilogy dedicated to that subject. Because that's another important subject of this day and age. The AI robotic takeover, guys, is imminent. The other day, here in California, we had this accident happening.
Moment things started heating up in Cupertino, California. At this hot pot restaurant, a humanoid robot's attempt to bust a move, just going bust. Items flying in the air. Restaurant workers appearing to try to rein in the robot with little luck.
The way this played out, it's funny, but what are the potential risks of a robot like that going haywire?
It's a big risk, and it's only the beginning, guys. It's only the beginning of a possible nightmare for humanity. And before saying bye-bye to all of you, I want to share with you images that come from Florence, because these images are also part of the one world religion which Pope Francis has been putting together. These images are from Florence, not from the Middle East. I repeat, from the city of Florence.
مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى.
The city of Florence, guys, check out the city of Florence in Italy. It's not the Middle East, but this is unfortunately the future of Europe, thanks to the Catholic Church, thanks to the Pachamama lovers, thanks to those lovers of syncretic religion. I will see you next week. Don't miss the Leo Zagami show every Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. Secret society, I'm trying to keep it on.
These are the images of the Pachamama statues being taken and then thrown in the Tiber River. Bye-bye.
Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. Secret society, trying to keep it on.